Welcome back. We're still with the National Coordinator, National Malaria Elimination Program, Dr. Audu Mohammed. Thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you. Well done.
Well, funding and transparency is another major issue right now. Even the minister went ahead to say that anyone caught involved in any financial fraud as regards the money set aside for any of the projects will be apprehended. And I'm wondering, how do you intend to manage these issues, funding and transparency, really?
Well, as far as funding is concerned, we are looking towards so many aspects. In fact, because of the donor fatigue, we have replayed back to make sure that domestic financing is seriously addressed. We have done so many advocacy to the National Assembly. In fact, all our budget requirement has passed the National Assembly with even some additional support. We have also reached out to the Governors Forum, and since implementation of malaria is done at the state level, and they have given us assurance that all the budgeted in this 2017 budget in the states, they will make sure that they fund it very well. We have also reached out to the private sector, and if you may recall, the Alhaji Aliko Dangote is the ambassador for malaria in the private sector, and the governor, chairman of the Governors Forum. The governor of Zamfara State is the malaria ambassador in the public sector, and all of them are giving us assure that they will reach their constituency to make sure that they contribute. Gamma alone cannot do everything, and individuals and also philanthropic bodies have also. And so also people in the community, there is some, since in malaria that you don't even need to spend a kobo, the community can also do it themselves, like environmental sanitation. Like synthesizing the rural people on how to do best practice and how to prevent malaria, and also to assess malaria intervention, because even if you procure, you stock the clinics, if people are not assessing it, it makes a difference. And in the international community, we are also making several case to get more funding, because we wanted to really reach our target, and we need a lot of resources. And so far, we are getting good response. Just of recent, we have submitted the request for Global Fund application for 2018 to 2020. Our application has been accepted, and then next month, the Presidential Malaria Initiative are coming to sit down with us to develop their annual operational plan, and UK DPIT also by this May, they are also coming to support the country with funding. So, and we are also looking inwards towards some other international development agency and African Development Bank to also support us, because we have a huge gap and wanted to address it squarely. So to do all these things, including the private sector, we are hoping that we'll execute all what we have planned under our strategic plan 2014-2020.
What's led to the suspension of the Global Funds grant?
Well, the issue of the suspension, the Global Fund has some mechanisms whereby if they find some something what they call ineligible, suspending has been done, but not to the way they really want it. They term that ineligible. Sometimes it can be a fraud, straightforward fraud. So when the Office of the Inspector General, that is how they call it in the Global Fund, came and assessed some of the 3 diseases. Usually Global Fund support malaria, HIV, TB. They discover that there is some money that they feel that it is ineligible, like misappropriated, and then they work out that amount of money, and they now ask the country to refund it, for which the country have accepted to refund. And some of this money have been traced to some individuals, and these individuals have been asked to refund. In fact, some of them have been either suspended or dismissed from service if they are government workers.
So the issue of transparency really would not be a challenge?
It would not be, because we have put in so many risk management mechanisms in place.
All right, let's talk about the World Health Organization having unveiled new vaccines, for malaria, and of course we've had trials in Kenya, Ghana, and other African countries. Would it come to Nigeria?
Since like vaccines, it has to undergo so many processes. when you develop a vaccine, you don't deploy it worldwide. Yes. It has to go through some processes. So since 2009 to 2014, they have passed the Phase 3 of the trial, and the vaccine has passed that phases. So after that phases, the Malaria Policy Advisory Committee in Geneva and the expert group on vaccine have approved the vaccine, and in fact the European regulatory agent has also endorsed that vaccine. So with that now, that vaccine can now be piloted. But to start piloting, because it's very costly, and also because you are dealing with human beings, so you need to start in smaller scale. So the WHO, together with the funders, they decided that what the resources they have at hand, they will start with implementing in some few countries. That is, they are choosing Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi. And if the vaccine scaled very well, no serious side effects, nothing, and it's achieving what is supposed to be achieved, then it will now go full-blown, more especially in these sub-Saharan countries like Nigeria.
Well, we keep our fingers crossed and hope that 2020 will be a year to remember when it comes to the issue of malaria. Thank you, Dr. Audu Mohammed, for coming on Dateline Abuja.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, residents have been expressing concern over the constant presence of cattle on the streets of the nation's capital. Well, this is in spite of an order by the Federal Capital Territory Administration. On this week's edition of Focus on the FCT, our next report looks at the indiscriminate cattle grazing in Abuja's city center. This is a familiar sight for many residents of the Federal Capital Territory. Cattle cohabiting with human beings. They disrupt car movements and litter the streets. This has raised serious concern among residents.
It's a very shameful thing that a country like Nigeria will allow cattle to be defecating on coal-tar roads. So this issue of ranch establishment or preparing a grazing ground for them should be seriously looked into.
For a city like Abuja, it's unfair for a cattle to move inside the town. It's very bad.
Cattle grazing is illegal in Abuja city center, but their surge in the nation's capital has raised questions on what the FCT administration is doing to address the menace.
There's no capital city in the world that you will see cattle walking across the road and weaving through traffic just because they are following the grazing path. So it became necessary for the Honorable Minister Mohammed to come up with that directive that all cattle rearing must go to all cattle grazing must go to the grazing area, that they should leave the city center.
Indeed, a task force under the Abuja Environmental Protection Board is charged with the responsibility of restricting their movements. But there has been little result, as the herdsmen insist that they don't have too many options. A total of 33,485 hectares have already been earmarked for grazing reserves to cater for about 7 million herds of cattle. The cattle grazing reserves are Paikonkore, 8,500 hectares, Karshi, 6,000 hectares, Kawu in Buari, 9,000 hectares, and Rubochi in Kuje, which is 9,985 hectares. Well, thank you for your mails as always. Please keep them coming using the email address and Twitter handle on your screen. Also, be sure to share anything happening within your locality. And don't you forget, you can watch the program on youtube.com/channelsweb/videos. Thank you for watching this week. I'm Gloria Umezuki.